G'day, and thanks for joining us for this webinar. Today we are going to be talking about and demonstrating the newest release from Perspectium, the Bismuth release. My name is Craig McDonough. I'll be your host for the webinar, and I'm joined by Paul Wynn, who's going to be diving into the technical detail of the release and demonstrating the new functionality to you. Welcome, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Great. How you doing? How's everyone doing out there?
I think we're all pretty good. Excited about Bismuth.
Definitely.
You may recall that we only recently started doing these release webinars, and we really did them for these specific reasons. First of all, you told us that you wanted to know more about each release, and so we put this program in place so that we would share the updates with you every time we released a new version of product. We will in fact be conducting one of these webinars every time every time there is a product release from Perspectium. We would encourage you to, during the session, please ask questions. So if anything comes up, just pop a question into the Q&A panel over on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll be trying to get to as many of those questions as we can during the course of the session today. And the session is being recorded as well, so this will be sent to you afterwards. Look out for an email from us that will allow you to download a recording. You can go back and watch bits you maybe didn't get clearly the first time, or you could share it with your colleagues at work, whatever you need to do. So we'll get that out to you shortly following this webinar. You may also recall that we changed our release naming scheme to make it easier for people to remember which release they were on. This particular one is Bismuth. You might be asking, though, what is Bismuth? It's a few things. It is the heaviest stable element. It's a ingredient in Pepto-Bismol and fire sprinkler systems. It is, in fact, the Biz of Pepto-Bismol. It forms staircase-shaped crystals like the ones you can see on your screen right now, which look quite nice. It's twice as common as gold in the Earth's crust, and it does other things as well. But most importantly, especially for people on this webinar, it's the latest release from Perspectium. So let's get into it and take a look at the release themes for Bismuth. And we'll start off by just going through these four. We're going to talk about the theme of simplified integration, some new process integrations that are now available, some new adapters that we're going to have available as well, and also new functionality for error handling. So let's start off by bouncing into the first of those, which is around simplified integration. In Bismuth, you'll see evidence of a new philosophy at Perspectium. We wanted to create a minimum configuration approach to integration setup, and we did that this time with ServiceNow to database integrations. Now, over time, you'll see this approach spread across all Perspectium integrations so that there's less to do to set them up and you can get up and running faster. Note that we haven't removed anything with this approach. You can still dive back into the configuration tools and methods that you're using today. This is just going to help you get started quicker and give you a baseline that you can then modify to get your integration working exactly the way you need it to work. I always say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So here's Paul to show you just what this new functionality looks like.
So the ready to run functionality adds a new module to the Perspectium Replicator application. Clicking on this ready to run module will display a single page UI, and this UI will actually allow you to kind of configure everything that needs to get up and running for you to replicate the incident table from ServiceNow to a database. So as you see on my screen right now, incident is the first option we're offering for ready to run. Eventually we will plan on adding more tables, more processes to this. We're starting with the incident process at this point. You enter the instance name is going to be auto-populated for you with your instance, but you can enter a different value if you want to do this ready to run for a different instance. Enter the password of a ServiceNow user that either has admin rights or the Perspectium role. Then you enter an encryption key for replicating this data. Then you enter the URL and username password for MBS. This information will be provided to you provisioned by support. So once you have this information for them, you can just go ahead and enter it here. And then from here, you choose the type of agent you're going to be configuring. If this agent should be running on Linux or Windows, I'll leave it Linux for now. And then after that, you enter your MySQL database. This is the database that the replicator agent will be connecting to. So in this case, I'll set this for my own agent. So on submit, you'll see the fact that it's going to go ahead and create the dynamic share, the bulk share, and a target queue for you. So basically, all the things in the past that you actually had to do configure on the ServiceNow side, now you can just go ahead and it's all done for you. And also, it downloads a zip file. The zip file is actually going to contain all the configuration you need for the agent. As part of this Ready to Run initiative, we're going to provide you an agent that's just a zip file. You don't have to walk through the 14-step screen to actually install the agent anymore. You just have a zip file, unzip it, and you unzip this zip file that's generated right here on top of that installation of agent, then you're good to go from there to start up the agent. So as I mentioned before, doing this, it creates a dynamic share for you. You see right here, we have this new dynamic share that was created specifically for this Ready to Run. We create a new bulk share, and this bulk share has actually been completed already. And we create the target queue. This is the target queue. It's already been configured for you. Both the dynamic and bulk share will share out to this queue, and the agent is configured to actually read from this queue as well. So if we look in the outbound messages right now, we'll see the messages that are supposed to be sent out for the agent, and we'll see that these messages are, as you see, the standard incident.bulk messages that, for those who have used our product before, know what these standard replicator messages look like. And we'll refresh it for a little bit. But while that's happening, I'll talk about the zip file. The zip file, if you extract it here, you'll see that it basically contains the files you need to actually install into the agent to run. So after you get the zip file from us with the agent, you unzip that, then you go in here, you'll see this has all the necessary files you need to run the agent. It has the agent.xml, which has all the configuration all set up already. So you pretty much, like I said, you just unzip these files, put it to where you installed the agent, and you're good to go. Versus before, we talk about this, you have to go through and set up a dynamic share. You have to set up a bulk share. You have to set up a share queue. You have to go in the agent, go through 14 screens to install the agent. Then you have to do this and do that. Now, everything is kind of cut down to this one single page UI. Submit it, get all the information you need, drop it in a couple different places, and you're good to go to run the agent.
Great. That's definitely going to make setting up those integrations a whole lot easier at the beginning. So cool. Thank you for that. The next thing we are going to talk about, though, is some of the new process integrations. And in particular, we'll start off talking about ServiceNow to Jira. So this is a ServiceNow to Jira bond specifically for service requests. One of our customers, Paychex, is actually using this to bond ServiceNow catalog tasks to Jira request issues. Of course, that's bidirectional, and it's happening with attachments as well. Paul, anything to add to that?
Yeah, the main thing we also did with this is that we made the setup, much more straightforward and much quicker, quicker turnaround time. Previously, with the incident to issue, change to Epic Story, there was, require a little bit of development work to get it up and running. Now, with the changes that we've done for service request to request, the turnaround time should be much quicker. We kind of re-engineered it a little bit so that we can quickly spin up new processes the way we're able to quickly spin up new processes in ServiceNow. We can do the same thing on Jira.
Awesome. So that's also going to make it a whole lot easier for people to get these integrations up and running. Another one that we've been doing work with recently has been ServiceNow to Remedy. And we've got a couple of new bonds for ServiceNow to Remedy, in particular incident to incident and change to change. Both, of course, bidirectional, including attachments and comments and work notes. This type of integration is going to be useful if maybe you're a service provider and you need to connect with a customer system running Remedy. or if you're migrating from Remedy to ServiceNow or vice versa, or if you're in a large organization that has multiple service management tools that you need to keep in sync with one another. This is exactly the type of solution that you are probably looking for. Why don't we let's bounce back to Paul and get him to show us a demo of some of these new process integrations.
So first, we'll start off with doing service request to request from ServiceNow to Jira. So here I'm in my ServiceNow instance. I'm gonna go ahead and create a service request. As many of you know, with our integrations that are going from ServiceNow to another integration, we generally use our common document format that ensures the data is consistent across both platforms. In this case, with request, we're using the common request document format. With service request is a unique one, the fact that it uses a service catalog. So there are a variety of different ways you can do it. You can do catalog tasks like one of our customers is doing. You can do service request itself, or you can do requested item. In this case, I'm going to do the service request itself. So here, I'm going to go ahead and order a new MacBook Pro. In this MacBook Pro, I'm going to go to the service request item itself. I'll put a comment in here. And then as is standard with our other messages, you'll see this message in the outbound. It is a common request message that's going to be inserted on the other side. Okay, so the message just got sent right now. So on this side, okay, so as you can see right here, let's come over to the Jira side. We have the ServiceNow identifier here, REQ00103338, which matches the number on this side, REQ00103338. And once the message comes over to the Jira side, it will come back. Then a message will send back to ServiceNow in order to correlate it. That way we can e-bond the ticket, and ServiceNow will then have the number in the Jira side. So we'll give that a couple of seconds for it to flow back into ServiceNow. So now, as you can see, the message has come back into ServiceNow, and it has a number DL2030, which matches with the number over in Jira, DL2030. So now we'll look at the ServiceNow, the Remedy integration. I'm going to start off by looking at an incident. I'm going to create an incident in ServiceNow and have it show up in Remedy. So I'll go ahead and create a new incident. Let me pick a user. That's a required field in ServiceNow. Choose a group for this. In this test environment, we set up a Remedy assignment group so that you only share out incidents to Remedy when it applies to this assignment group. I'll give it a short description. And then go ahead and submit this. And just like our other integrations with incident management and the way we did Jira earlier, we use a common document for this one. In this case, it's going to be the common incident record. Take a look at it in the outbound. We see that the message was already sent out. So now we'll go over to the Remedy side and take a look at the record there. And you can see right here that the incident was created in Remedy. INC 186, network is down. And just like our Jira integration, we'll send back this number, this number to correlate in ServiceNow. So we should be receiving this message soon. And once we get this message, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the incident record. And as you can see right there, it has an incident record, and it's correlated INC 186, which matches INC 186 in Remedy. And just to show the communication the other way, I'm going to go ahead here and I'll add a work note. And I'll also attach a file in here. Keeping it with our Bismuth theme here. Go ahead and I'll attach the Bismuth image. So this is going to be shared out, the work note and the attachment. This was sent over to ServiceNow, and we'll refresh this and verify this gets shown up over here. So this one we just refresh now. We see in here a little Bismuth picture. And so you can see our nice little picture as from our earlier beginning of our webinar. And that just shows you, that now you have attachment that was created over in Remedy shows up over in ServiceNow, and that's the integration bidirectional ServiceNow to Remedy.
Thanks, Paul. I imagine a lot of people will be excited about that new functionality. Let's move on, though, to the next area that we're going to talk about, the new adapters. We have a couple of those that we wanted to introduce to you, starting off with the Aptus adapter. Now, Aptus is a global leader in quote-to-cash and contract lifecycle management. And this adapter was one that was actually requested by our customer at ServiceNow. They were looking for a way to connect Aptus to SAP HANA, and that is what we built. Of course, it's not limited just to SAP HANA. It will work with any of our supported databases. Paul, anything to add to that?
Yes, as Craig mentioned, this new adapter allows us to pull data from Aptus using web service calls to Aptus. Aptus has a lot of different tables. Pricing quotes are the main thing, but it allows you to pull the data from Aptus and then send it out so that our replicator agent, which as Craig mentioned, supports various different database formats. SAP HANA was the initial use case, but it will work perfectly fine with MySQL, Oracle, MS SQL, and so forth, Redshift, Postgres, and all the other ones. But the idea was to be able to pull the data from Aptus to the database, save it for use for whatever tools you want to use, business analytics and so forth. But with this new integration, we can use this adapter to actually pull Aptus data and save it elsewhere as well, besides the database.
Cool. Let's talk about the other adapter that we've just introduced as well, the Sherwell adapter. We now have a one-way incident management integration from ServiceNow to Sherwell. And we're already working to make this bidirectional in our next release. But for right now, you can use it in a very similar way to the Remedy adapter that we spoke about earlier.
So right now, you can actually create tickets in ServiceNow, have it show up in Remedy, and be able to have e-bonded so that, it has the ServiceNow instance will have the ID in Sherwell. But as Craig mentioned, in our next release, the C release, we do plan to have it working bidirectionally, meaning that you can proactively create tickets in ServiceNow or proactively create tickets in Sherwell. But for right now, it's proactively allowing you to create tickets in ServiceNow and have it show up in Sherwell.
Great, thanks, Paul. And so we move on to the fourth theme of the Bismuth release. You think I'd be better at saying it by now, wouldn't you? In Bismuth, we've now added error handling for ServiceNow to ServiceNow integrations. We will be extending this as well in future releases, but for right now, the way that it works is when data is sent from one instance to another, the originating instance marks each shared record as sent. When the records get to the receiving instance, a receipt is sent back to let the originating instance know that the records have been received successfully. Any mismatch between what is sent and what receipts are received will then trigger an error notification.
Right, so now with this receipt capabilities, from ServiceNow to ServiceNow, the subscribing side, the side that receives the message, will send the receipt back, as Craig mentioned. And then we have a scheduled job that actually runs and monitors messages that were sent out, meaning that we monitor when you send out the message, and then we're expecting to receive a receipt back for it. If we don't receive a receipt back for it, we'll log an error, which with our error notification capabilities allows you to subscribe to that error and get notified. Get an email notification saying that you haven't received that message. This is a way for you to actually be able to get notified when records aren't making it to the other side because the other side never notified you of receiving it and your receipt that I have it. For right now it is ServiceNow to ServiceNow. What the plan is to roll it out to all our integrations so that the ones we showed earlier today, ServiceNow to Remedy, ServiceNow to Jira, the ones we talked about, the new adapters, Sharewell, and so forth, all of them will be able to send receipts back and forth so that way this sharing side will then be able to kind of track and see if the other side actually received the message or not.
Great. So that is the 4 main themes of the Bismuth release. But there are a couple of other things that we did in this release as well. We added the ability to copy a table map to give you a way to copy a table map and all of its field maps. This can be useful for when you want to make a copy of a table map to use as a starting point for another integration. It'll also make it easier for you to create your own working copy and maybe keep one as a master version. We also included a way to add all source table fields to a table map to allow you to quickly add all the fields of the specified source table as field maps. You'll use this where you want all fields to be in the outbound table map and you only want to modify maybe a few of the fields to have different values. It gives you a way to quickly add all fields of the source table so you can spend more time configuring the table map versus time just getting the table map created. Another new feature allows dynamic share to limit the fields that are being shared on reference records. This allows you to specify which fields on reference records are shared out, so you have control over which fields you want to share and which ones you don't. That way you can make sure you're not sharing unnecessary fields or fields containing maybe sensitive data. And we've also done some work on our Salesforce integration to make it easier to share child records. The new Include Child Records option provides a way to share out child records of a parent record. This will capture events on those child tables with filtering done so we only share out child records related back to the parent record. And in addition to all of that, we fixed about 35 bugs in this last release, continuing our quality initiative. Here's Paul again to show you some of these new capabilities.
So the first one I'm going to start off with is the ability to copy a table map. This feature is useful for when you want to, when we provide these common document format update sets to you, and they have a kind of like a master table map, outbound table map for how you would create a common change, common request, common incident, and so forth. You might want to keep that one as kind of like a master copy, then make your own copy of it so you can make your own modifications. Also, another use case might be because of the fact that you want to be able to create different table maps for the same table, but for different scenarios, different processes. For example, when you resolve an incident, or when you open an incident, or when you create an incident, these are the type of things you want different table maps. We've seen some of our customers, they'll have multiple maps because they want to pass multiple fields. So this is the option for that. So with that said, you open up, go to table maps, you open up a table map like I have on screen right now, and then you can just choose this copy table map field option, copy table map option. So by clicking this option, you'll see that it will now create a copy of it. We put dash copy at the end, so it's a copy. You can change the name, of course, as you like. And it goes ahead and adds all the fields from that same table map you're looking at before, adds it to this copy. So now you have a copy. You can go ahead and modify, change things as you like. The next feature is, if you don't have a table map you want to copy, just say you're starting from scratch because you're making a new table map for your own custom table or some other table. This table map now, you want to choose a table. Say, for example, I'm going to make this table map. And then I choose a table. In this case, let's say I choose the catalog task table. Excuse me, let me change this to outbound. So when I save this table map, where you'll see the related list that shows all the different field table, the field maps you can do for this particular outbound table map. If I want to say, for example, I want to add most of the fields, but I just want to remove like a handful. Instead of having to go through, let's say there's 30 fields in the table, instead of having to add manually one by one, clicking this new button and add, one by one 25 different times, what I can do instead is start off by using this add all source table fields option, which basically will take all the fields from the source table you specified, in this case, catalog tasks, and add all the fields to it. That way, you can start with more and get rid of some fields. It's easier to start with 30 fields and get rid of 5, or in this case 69 fields and get rid of 10, versus having to create 59 fields. So that's what this option is meant for. It's better to get rid of fields and try to add them one by one. That way you can spend more time configuring it. So that would be that option. Then the third option that we want to kind of show is on the dynamic share. As many of you are aware, on the dynamic share, you have the ability to excuse me, share reference fields, meaning that if I'm doing a dynamic share on the incident table, and then I want to share the assigned to record, like who the actual assigned to person is, who the caller is, who the assignment group, who the company is, those type of records, the related records, the reference field records, by default before, you actually have to share the entire record, meaning that I had to share the entire sys user record, the entire sys user group record, and so forth, the entire company record. But with this feature now, you can actually limit which fields you share on these records. For example, you may not want to share a user's, might only want to share a user's first name, last name, their email address. You might not want to share any other sensitive information about them. This is a way for you to kind of limit sensitive data from being shared out while providing the necessary data you need to. So for example, using this, I'll go ahead and select these options that we would normally do for a dynamic share. We'll choose the include reference field option here. After I submit this, as you know, the reference fields related list will be shown on screen. And we go down to this field right here, this related list, then I go ahead and just click new because I just want to add one by now for this demo purpose. And then in this case, like I said, I'm going to choose the assigned to. So I want the reference field for the assigned to person. That means I'm going to share out the sys user record. But in this case, I'm going to choose the option here. I only want to share specific fields, selected fields. So when I click submit on there, and I look at this reference field record again, you're going to see that you're able to actually specify which fields you want to share out. So for example, in here, I can go ahead by default, kind of like the way we had for the table map to add all the fields. I can go ahead and add all the fields of the sys user table itself. But if I don't want to do that, I can just go ahead and add them one by one. I can just choose, for example, I don't want to share out the email address. That's what we were talking about earlier. So now, when someone shares out an incident record and it shares out the reference field, the actual sys user record, it's only going to share out this record with just the email address only. So you only share out the information you need to share out. And then finally, the last feature I want to talk about was Salesforce. In Salesforce, as Craig mentioned, there is an ability now to do sharing child records. So using this example, the case table is a popular one. The case table is kind of almost similar to ServiceNow's incident table. And when you pull up the case table now, at the bottom underneath additional settings, there's this include child records option. Basically, we're going to go ahead and query this table, which is a case table for all child records, all almost like equivalent to ServiceNow's reference field records, but basically, all fields on that can have the case record as its parent record. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I want to include the case comment record. Case comment record, or share out the case comment child record, is kind of the equivalent of a sys journal field in ServiceNow. That's where all the comments are related to the case record are stored. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. In Salesforce, you have to create the trigger separately, trigger equivalent of ServiceNow's business rule. So after I do that and I save it and create the trigger, now once this is done saving, I'm going to go ahead and go to a case record. So in this case, this case record right here, I'm going to add a new comment to it. This is where the case comments are, because the case comments are the child record. And then when I save these comments, we'll look in the outbound table, and we'll see now a case comment record being shared out. And this case comment record, like I said before, is the equivalent to the sysjournal field in ServiceNow. So we can share this out, share it directly to a database, like we do in normal Salesforce to database integration, or share it out to ServiceNow, and then we can use ServiceNow to have an import set table, save this directly into a journal field for the equivalent incident record on that side.
Great, thanks, Paul. So there it is, the Bismuth release from Perspectium. And as you'll recall from the beginning of this webinar, there were 4 primary themes. We talked about simplified integration with the new ready-to-run process, and look for those to be expanded across many of the processes from Perspectium. The new process integrations, specifically the integrations for Remedy and for Jira. We talked about some of the new adapters that have been created, the adapters for Aptus, and Shirtwell were in there. And then we talked about the error handling capability, specifically just between ServiceNow instances right now, but we'll look to expand that as we move forward with further releases. And of course, the other content that you'll find in the Bismuth release. So we're pretty excited about everything that is in this release. Hopefully you are as well. But you know what? We couldn't have actually done this without you, our customers. A special thank you to each of these customers who directly contributed to the Bismuth release. It was your enhancement requests and your feedback that helped us make our product even better. So we really do thank you for that. Not just for being our customers, but for helping us create the best process integration for service management there is. So how do you get your hands on Bismuth? Well, in short, you contact Perspectium support. And you can do that. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can shoot us an email at support@perspectium.com. You can give us a call on the phone number on the screen there, or you can come in through the portal and contact us that way. But whatever method you choose, we will help you through the process of upgrading and moving up to the Bismuth release. Of course, we had to put in the gratuitous cat image into the webinar. I think when you do any sort of search on elements, this is the only joke that comes up. There aren't that many Bismuth jokes out there anyway. And so with all of that, I would like to thank you for joining us, and thank you too for Paul for being part of today's webinar. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar was recorded, and we'll make the recording available to you in the next couple of days. Just keep an eye out for an email from us containing the link. And if you have any follow-on questions, please feel free to email us at support@perspectium.com or contact us via the portal, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. Thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you next time.